Hey everyone, I'm Tom and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite videos I do throughout the year, and that is one of my quarterly check-ins. These are always a great time. I go over my stats, goals, all of that fun stuff. I will rank all of the books that I've read in this quarter, talk about goals for the rest of the year, all of that fun stuff. There will be timestamps in the description so you can skip through stuff if there's sections you don't care about, because I'm going to have like 5 different sections here. The first one will be stats. I will talk about how my goals have been going so far this year, some highlights throughout the year. Then I will rank all of the books that I've read in this quarter, talk about them briefly. I don't want to drone on too long, though it is something I am known to do. And then I will end off with some of my new goals, some things I want to try to focus on or do coming in the future, and any questions that I have for you guys. So with that preamble out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the stats. And so I will start firstly with overall stats for the year and then drill down into just quarter 3. So for this year overall, so far, I have read 43 books. Now, there's a caveat there already where some of these 43 are actually comic books. They're not, with the exception, no, none of them are single issues. I have read collections of comics, so I count those as novels. If you don't like that, I totally understand. I think it's 4 or 5 that I have read throughout the year. So technically the novels are a little bit lower than that number would indicate, but my goal this year was only 40. So I am way ahead and technically over because I'm counting those comic books. I'm way over that goal. Which is nice. I wanted to set a lower goal this year because I never wanted reading to feel like a chore, like I was chasing a number or anything. I do still like to have some light goals just to kind of keep me on pace and not like let me go too crazy or anything. So it's been nice to have that low number. I might probably be around 60 again this year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, depending on the length of some of the stuff that I read. But I do also use pages read as another metric to just try to keep me on track. And I like to be around 20,000 pages. Obviously, the number of books can be skewed with how long and short they are. So the page count helps a little bit. Obviously, word count would be better, but I'm not going and digging up all the word count information. So currently, I'm at 15,352 pages read out of that 20,000 page goal, which isn't super strict, and that puts me at 76%. So 1% over where I probably should be. And also, you might notice I'm filming this a little bit early in September. I have some stuff going on later in the month. I wanted to do this a little early, so this might get bumped up a little bit more. And then the last overall stat I want to give for this year is my ratings, where I've given books what star ratings and all that stuff. If you're familiar with my rating system, this number will make a lot of sense. So I have given out 2 stars this year. I've given out 33 stars, which I feel like I always have to preface this, no matter what, a 3-star is a good book to me. I think for a lot of people, my 3 stars are probably a 4-star. My 4 stars are probably 5 stars. My 5 stars are like all-time new favorites. But whatever. I've given out 15 4-stars and 5 5-stars, which is a little high for me, but 2 of those are actually from comic books that I've read. So on the novel front, it's really 3 5-stars. So, it gets a little messy when I start adding in comics and stuff. And if I ever get back to reading manga, it will probably muddle it up even more. And I think that is all that I have for the year stats. So now we're going to talk about this quarter specifically. So in this quarter, I have read a total of 13 things. And I say things because 4 of them were comics. And when like I said, not just single floppy individual comics. These are, bind ups of like entire stories or closer to that kind of format than just like an individual floppy 15-page comic. So that leaves me with 13 novels that I have read. So a very good quarter. That's about what I want to be at. Actually, a little bit over, and I cannot complain about that at all. And that puts me at somewhere around the 5,000 pages. Technically, that'll probably be higher, like I said, as I continue on here in September and get some more reading done, which I would expect to do when I go on vacation and all of that stuff. So that is some of the fun stats. Like I said, it's been good so far. This quarter might have been my best one overall this year. I feel like I just really focused and kind of got rid of some stuff that was just like wasting time, trying to spend less time, just doom scrolling and kind of things, and really helped me read a little bit more. I actually read physically more in this quarter than I probably have the rest of the year combined. And so now let's quickly switch over to some of the goals that I had set for myself this year. One of the goals, and this is going to be a new one, is I wanted to read at least 1 nonfiction this year, and I did. I read Julius Caesar, and so that one is checked off. I have this interesting goal because in the past, I feel like I've been too adventurous with my reading, where I go out and I'll hear somebody talk about something that feels very outside of my wheelhouse, and I'll read it and then not really like it. And I'll go into something being adventurous, trying new things and everything. And this year I wanted to be a little less adventurous. I wanted to try to stay more in my wheelhouse, read things that I think I will like. And I will say, I don't think I've done that. And I think I'm actually glad that's a goal that I haven't completed, because going out and experiencing all these new things, I think maybe the quality of them has been better, or maybe I'm just more open-minded to them as I go into them, as I mature more and more as a reader. So this is actually a goal I'm actually really happy I can still say no, that's not something I've done, because I think my year has been better for it overall. Another one was to finally start Sun Eater. And if you've been around the channel recently, you know I am devouring Sun Eater right now, really enjoying it. So that is another goal that I have checked off. And then this is maybe my funniest goal that I have this year, and it was be more consistent with reading manga. And that has definitely not been the case. And actually, in general, you could say I've replaced almost all of my manga reading, especially this quarter. I don't know if I've read, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 volumes, volumes of manga this, or chapters of manga, not volumes, this quarter, and that has all basically been replaced with comics. I have read a lot of comics in this quarter, and it's been great. I've actually really enjoyed it. I've had some great conversations about comics, read a bunch of really great stuff, like some of the best, so it's kind of like easy to do it when you're starting at the top and like working through seeing what you like and everything. And I've read comics in the past, but this year and this quarter specifically, it's just been something that really called to me, and I've really been enjoying it. Another goal I had this year was to do a live stream. I have already got that one checked off. If you have been here around the channel, one of my goals was to continue to make book covers for all of the books I don't own. If you don't know, I'm mostly an audio person, or I try to get as much stuff from the library and stuff, so I don't, buy a bunch of books and everything. But that makes it a little annoying when I have a booktube channel and I want to like show you what I've got going on. So if you're not familiar, I make all of my own fun little book covers here, something like that. I try to make them a little funny and silly. It doesn't, some work better than others and everything, but that has been really fun. One caveat to that is I wanted to try to start writing notes inside of my books, my fake little covers here. And I did that for a little while, and it's not something I stuck with. I have noticed that I have a hard time doing written reviews, whether it be Goodreads or anything. And so having the booktube channel talking about every book I read in a weekly update or monthly wrap up has really been kind of like the filler there. But the only bad part about that is that I have to go back and find where I talk about what books if I want to, if I don't do an individual review, I have to figure out where I talked about it and that kind of stuff. And that can be a little bit annoying. So I don't know. That's kind of one of those goals that maybe I should go back and try to write, just even if it's a couple bullet points about the book. I think that maybe would be a good thing overall. And then my last two goals were to continue, or my last goal was to continue on with my two long series, which are The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janie Wertz, which I would say I kind of have. I've started to read some of the short stories to get ready to read the next full-length novel, Grand Conspiracy, which should be happening soon. And then the other one is Malazan, and I have not gone back to Malazan after House of Chains, and I don't know if I will the rest of this year. I feel like I have a lot of stuff that I want to get to that will not be able to facilitate reading another massive book in Malazan. That doesn't mean I'm done with Malazan. I'm definitely going to go back to it. It's still a series that I want to dive more into, and I really enjoy the conversations around Malazan. I really like going back and listening to what people have said and thoughts and stuff about it. I really enjoy being a part of the conversation of Malazan. I'm not sure I really enjoyed the experience of reading it at the time, but even House of Chains, which is my least favorite of the Malazan books, when I read it, I didn't really have a good time. And then going and listening and talking and hearing thoughts and all these things, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So I have a really weird relationship with Malazan right now, and I would really like to get to a point where I really enjoy it, like so many other people. It just hasn't clicked for me yet, and maybe it never will, and it won't be an all-time series for me, but at this point in time, I'm still committed to reading more of it. And I'm not going to say I'm committed to finishing Malazan Book of the Fallen at this point, but I'm definitely committed to trying at least a couple more books. And at that point, I probably should finish the series. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes as I continue forward in that journey at some point. Like I said, it might not be until next year until I get back to that. So that is some of the goals for this year. Now we're going to I have a really quick thing for highlights, because this quarter was great. I was in so many collaborations, live streams, all kinds of videos that I got to do with so many people, and I tried to make a list of it, and I was so afraid that I was forgetting people that I decided to just say anybody I have collaborated with, anybody I've done a live stream with, any kind of discussion, comments, all of that stuff. Like, it has been fantastic. I feel like this quarter was just like a super great time inside of the booktube community, which maybe you as a viewer don't care about, but like, it has been cool to get to hang out and meet so many, super nice people and get to know people and all that stuff. So that has definitely been a huge highlight for me. And I mean, I'll just throw this in here now instead of at the end of the video, but like, obviously anybody who watches the channel, subscribes, likes, comments, all of that stuff, I really appreciate it. It makes this a lot more fun when I get to, go back and forth with people in comments, or, hear your thoughts about books or what you're reading. I really do appreciate that. So plug for the Discord. There's a Discord linked in the description. It's me and like 8 other booktube channels. So it's not just me. And, we all have our own little space, but in general, it's just kind of like a fun community with a lot of fun people and just a good time in there in general. But with some of that preamble out of the way, we're going to go ahead and talk about the books. And I'm going to do this in reverse order of where I have them ranked. So I'm a psychopath, and I have a spreadsheet where I rank every book that I read. And so these are just from quarter three. So this does not include my overall rankings or anything, but this is definitely all of the books that I read in this quarter and the ranking. So we will be starting with my least favorite, which I will say nothing was less than a 3-star this quarter, which is really great. And I will tell you when we get to the 4 stars, and then there is a 5-star, which I think is very fun. So we're going to go ahead and start out with, which I already actually showed this cover, A Covenant of Ice. This is by Karen Lewoshi, and this is the final book in the Crown of Isha trilogy. I read that one pretty recently. I gave it a 3-star. I liked it. I don't know if it or the second book, they're very close to me in general. I think this might be my least favorite if I really sat and thought about it, but I still thought it was a really great finish to this trilogy. I think this is a trilogy you should read. It's super underrated. It doesn't have a lot of hype around it. This is probably one of the least hyped books I have ever read in my entire life. And I think that the trilogy, they're all 100 or 125 pages. You can read them all super quick. They're on Audible, anything. They're super available, super easy to read, but a lot of fun things are explored in them. And so that was that one. And then next up, this is actually a short story, and this is After the Animal Flesh Begins. Now this is actually a collection of short stories in a short story. So this is 25 pages or something like that. So it's super, super short, but it's weird. And I don't know, I think when I read this, I was just kind of in the mood for weird. It was so short, it's hard to say too much about it. It's weird. I think you can find this for free in a lot of places. I think the ebook was 99 cents. So if you're interested in, I know I'm not really selling it or anything here other than saying it was weird, but I liked that it was weird and I was in the mood for something weird. So I think when I read this, it ended up working out really well. Then we get to Child of Prophecy by Janny Wurts. This is one of the short stories that I mentioned that I got back into for the Wars of Light and Shadow series. So I think you technically need to have read at least the first book in the series, maybe even the first couple to really read that, I guess, is the proper order. I don't know. I looked it up on the Wikipedia page. So I won't say too much about it other than it's good. Anytime you get to experience Janny Wurts' writing, it's going to be a good time because that in itself is a treat. Then next up, we have, this is the 4th book in the Last Horizon series by Will White, and that is The Pilot. This was probably my least favorite of the series I have read so far, which I feel like I'm being really negative about these books, even though I liked them. I thought they were all good. But I think the highs of this series have been higher than that book. And the pilot, this series is interesting. It's lit RPG, but it's not. It's sci-fi, but it's not. It's fantasy, but it's not. It's all of these things blended together and everything. I think there's some good comedic moments in this series as a whole, and I would recommend the series as a whole because even though this is probably my least favorite of the books, this one got me super excited for the next book in the series. The ending of this book, some crazy stuff happens, and it really opens up the series for it to continue and more stuff to happen, which is always kind of what I want personally as I move into deeper into series. If a book's not going to deliver in of itself, even though I said it was good, I had a good time with it, if it makes me excited for the next book in the series, that's at least something. So that has been that's kind of the pilot in general. It's getting me to the next destination. Next up is The Lesser Devil by Christopher Ruocchio. This is Sun Eater 1.5, and I just liked getting some different perspectives. So obviously the main books are from a certain character's perspective, and getting out of that character's head and into some different characters' heads, and just to see kind of the things that happen in the aftermath of some other actions, obviously being very vague because I don't want to spoil anything about this, but it was nice and I enjoyed it. And were they my favorite characters ever? No. Was it the deepest story ever? No. Did it help with some slight world building? Yes, absolutely. So it was a good time. I'm glad I read it. I don't feel like it's the most important thing. This isn't a short story I would say you need to read, at least at the point I am at in the series. Maybe later on I'll change my mind a little bit and say, no, this is definitely something that you need to do. And then unfortunately, I don't have a cover for the next one, so you just get the title, which is The Decoy. This is another Janny Wurts short stories that I mentioned in the Wars of Light and Shadow. Once again, short story, you need to read a couple books to be able to get to this one. It's good. I enjoyed it. Once again, Janny Wurts' writing. It's always a treat to get to. Then next up, we have the winner of the SPFBO competition, or Spiffbox 10. And that is By Blood, By Salt by J.L. Odom. And I did actually get to talk to the author with Noel D. Jake from Nerd Love Rising and Chance Dillon, and that was an awesome conversation. It actually really made me appreciate this book even more than I did at the time. I think this is a 4-star book, so anything now until we get to the 5-star, these are all 4 stars. Everything before it was a 3-star, and I really enjoyed this one. It's a very different kind of fantasy book than I have read. It's almost in the Malazan fantasy, and I say that even though they're very, very different, but it's military fantasy-esque, or this is just military fantasy, I guess. So there's a lot of tropes and things that happen in those stories that I'm not very used to. I don't think they're necessarily my favorite thing to read, but the way the language is used in this book and the subtle world building that happens, and just there's a lot that goes on in this. And it's one of those things where after I talked to the author and everybody else in that conversation, some of the points that they brought up made me appreciate this story even more than I did at the time. And that's, you know, that's always going to be a huge highlight and something. Obviously, this won that competition, so I'm probably not the first person you've heard this from, but it is very good. And you know, if you want to try self-published stuff, like this is a great one to take a chance with, because it's super, super well done. And I think the writing itself is like a step above a lot of other stuff that I have read. Next up, we have a short story, and again, back to Sun Eater, and that is Queen Amid Ashes. Unlike the Lesser Devil, I would say this is an absolute necessity to read for if you're going into Sun Eater. I don't know how you can skip this one. The emotional impact that, like the horrific feelings that I got out of this one were just top tier, next level. It reminded me of Band of Brothers, and there's some scenes in Band of Brothers where some things are discovered, and it's just like the impact of that, and you kind of get some of that same kind of feeling in Queen Amid Ashes, which is crazy to say. Like, one really happened, one's a fantasy story. I get all of that, but you know, sometimes your mind just puts some parallels together in some interesting ways. Then after that, I have Darien. This is the first book in the Empire of Salt trilogy. This is such a unique and fun fantasy book, and one thing that makes it unique is it is fast. Like, it is snappy. This is the kind of story where a lot of fantasy stories would take 1,000 pages to do what this book does in like 300, and I just needed that at the time. It's not too fast. It maybe lacks a little bit on some of the deep character connections you would maybe want if you're like a super focused character reader, but I still think you get an emotional connection to the characters you should. But like, characters die, characters you don't think are going to die, there's consequences, there's action, and it all happens on a timeline that I really appreciated. And like, you could almost read this as a standalone. Like, if say you don't want to start another trilogy, just read this and you could probably treat it as a standalone. I mean, like, I'm continuing on with the series because I think it's really good, but Darien Empire of Salt was a great time, a great change of pace, and one of those fantasy series where if you're tired of the 750 page, you know, fantasy epics, like, give that book a chance. And I think you will be really happy with what you get out of that story. Next up, we return to Janny Wurts yet again, but this time it is not a part of her Wars of Light and Shadow series. This is a standalone. This is actually her first published work, and that is Sorcerer's Legacy. And you want to talk about a book that has an absolute crazy ending. Something wild happens at the end of this one that I did not see coming whatsoever. I buddy read this one with Shay over at Zachary Shay. We both had this kind of like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened moment. And this is one of those ones where it's really cool to go and experience an author's very first work, especially when you've read more of their work, because you can see how they grow and change, or some of the things that they do the same. This was full of magic, political intrigue, and just like all the good stuff that Janny Wurts does is sprinkled into this book. But it's also really cool to see how she has expanded and has written so many other things that are really great. Then the penultimate book for quarter three is going to be While Darkness Gathers by Philip Chase, the second best book I have read in quarter three. And this is just a great standalone sequel to the Adan trilogy. I had a great time with this. I talked again with Jake from Nerd Level Rising and Nikhil about this book. It was an awesome time, had a great time with it. This is, again, another fantasy book that is not, 500, 600 pages. It's about 300 pages. It's fast paced. It does so many things right. And the thing that I always keep coming back to when I talk about While Darkness Gathers is it does an excellent job of treating legacy characters from the original trilogy correctly, while also introducing new characters that I care about just as much, if not more, than some of those characters. And there's just this great blend of storytelling between the new and the old, and just like, it just works so well. And it's just like a great continuation for the series. So if you've read the original trilogy, I highly recommend you should not wait to pick up While Darkness Gathers, because it delivers in such a great way. It's bittersweet, but in like the best way possible. And it is a book I'm very glad that I got to read. I read it like as it came out. So that is always great. And then that leaves us with the 1 5-star that I had in quarter three, my favorite book that I read here, and that is Howling Dark by Christopher Rocco. And I do have to say, this is one of my favorite covers that I did. Pokemon reference, big Pokemon fan. And if you get that, that's awesome. But Howling Dark, it still has moments in it that I think about constantly. It probably helps that I'm still reading Sun Eater. So like, I'm still reading Demon in White right now, and I'll be thinking about Demon in White, and then I'll be thinking about stuff that happens in Howling Dark. And just, man, there are just a couple scenes inside of that book that are just really special. And I actually want to go back and reread some of the scenes from it, which is not something that like normally happens for me. Like I'm normally like I read a book, I'm done with it. Even if I really, really like it, even if I love it, I don't normally want to go back to something that I have already done. And so the fact that Howling Dark makes me want to do that, I think, is the best way for me to talk about how great it is and how much it has impacted me as a reader. And just it's going to be a book, even if I like, I don't think this will be the case. Even if I hated the rest of the Sun Eater, Howling Dark is just one of those books that I will always hold up as like a pinnacle of storytelling and enjoyment for me. I know it's not going to work for everybody, but that is what it is. And so at this point, you're probably like, well, those numbers don't match up. And that's because I don't rate nonfiction books. A lot of times they're like bibliographies or autobiographies, and it feels weird to like rank somebody's life story or anything. Technically, this is a historical figure, so I probably could have. But one other thing that I picked up was Julius Caesar. I really enjoyed this. I think if you know ancient Rome or Julius Caesar, somebody you're interested in, this was a great way to get into it. I learned a lot about. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know, a lot of stuff in Gaul, and just I don't know. I guess I always just thought Julius Caesar Rome, and there's so much outside of that that happens that was really informative, and I really enjoyed in that book. And then now just quickly some of the comics that I read in this block. First up, we have All-Star Superman. Maybe my least favorite Superman story I've read, which is hilarious because this, if you like asked, I don't know, 1,000 Superman fans, they would say this is quintessential Superman. This is the Superman story you need to read. And I just think Tom King, with a couple other stories we'll talk about here in a second, do it better. That by no means that All-Star Superman is bad. It is still very, very good, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like some of the emotional connection that I really enjoy is lacking in that compared to some of the other ones I've read. Like Superman for All Seasons, technically I read earlier this year, and I would put it above this. But then also we have, and when I was talking earlier about some of these comics being just as long, if not longer, than novels you'll read, this is technically the second compendium of Invincible that I haven't started yet. I just got this from the library, but the first one is just as long, and I read that, and man, this is great. If you're a manga reader and you want to get into comics, I'm going to point you towards this because it's very similar to manga in the fact that it's one author telling one story through these 3 compendiums, which is like 150-ish or so chapters. And so it's just something that you can do and explore. You don't have to worry about anything else. It's a long story. So I don't know, it gives manga vibes. So if you're a manga reader and want to get into comics, I think this is a really good thing to do. And then the last comic that I read in this quarter is Superman Up in the Sky, probably my favorite Superman story. Between this and For All Seasons, it's super close, but I'm probably going to give the nod, which is crazy, to Up in the Sky. I even did like a reading excerpt from this in one of my weekly updates, just like quintessential Superman. I think if you want to read a Superman story to understand why people like me, Superman is their favorite character, this is the comic to do it. Superman Up in the Sky, I think, paints the picture better than pretty much any other Superman comic for what I think of when I think of Superman. So that is that. And so that is all of the books and everything. Definitely let me know what you have read and everything. And just real quickly, we're going to talk about some of the goals that I have going forward for the rest of the year. So first up is I want to continue on with the Wars of Light and Shadow. The next book, main book, is The Grand Conspiracy. Originally, I wanted to get through the entire Alliance of Light sub-arc in this series this year, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think that means I would have to average about a book a month. And that's just not how I read Janny Wurts. She takes me a lot longer to read. I really take my time with it and like enjoy it in like a different way than a lot of other stuff I read. So that one's probably not going to get that far into it, but I would like to continue and maybe get at least 1 or 2 more of the main novels done. Obviously be caught up with Sun Eater because I'm going to the gala. There's a big gala that they're doing for the last book, and it'd be weird, I think, to not be caught up with the series and have a VIP ticket to the Sun Eater gala and try to like not get spoiled for things that happen until the very end of the series. I would definitely want to continue with comics. As you can see, already am. I've got this monstrosity, like I said, it's just a massive collection of comics, but definitely want to finish this for sure. I want to get finished the whole series. So Compendium 2 and 3, I definitely do want to get to. I have a bunch of comics over here that you can't see that I also want to get through as well, because I told myself I can't buy any more until I read that stack that is sitting over there at me for sure. And with talking about comics and everything, I would like to get back to manga. It is there are stories in manga that I absolutely adore, like Berserk. Vinland Saga has ended and I haven't read the final chapter yet, partially because I don't want to, because I don't want it to be over, but also partially just because like I haven't been reading a lot of manga, and I think that's something I need to remedy as we go forward. I started Free Run Beyond Journey's End and read like the first 20 chapters and absolutely loved it. It was everything that I wanted in the story, and then I just stopped for whatever reason. So I definitely do want to get back to manga. There are some new releases coming out. Obviously Sun Eater, I'm I'm going to read that, like, as soon as I possibly can, because I'm kind of obsessed with it right now. There's a new Dan Brown book in like the Robert Langdon series, so that's like Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. I really like those books, and a new one just came out. I think it's like The Secrets of the Secret History or something like that. I want to read that. And then obviously the Empire of the Dawn, I think is what it's called, the Jay Kristoff book, the final book in the Empire of the Vampire trilogy. Absolutely cannot wait to get to that. Those first two books are some of my favorite fantasy books of all time. So definitely want to get into that and everything. So those are some of the goals. As you can see, I don't have too many goals moving on for the rest of the year. It's more just to keep reading stuff, keep making fun videos and all that stuff. So that is pretty much the plan. If you have any questions, thoughts, let me know what you read, all the fun stuff, anything you want to leave down below in the comments, definitely do. Like I said, this is always a super fun video to make, and I hope the rest of the year is as good as this one has been so far. So yeah, that's going to be all for me. And remember to keep reading what you want when you want.